All right, good morning. I come to you live from the chair. This is a morning broadcast, and I have to use the restroom. Hold on. Enjoy the sounds of the storm in the background. The beginning of the production of this video flared a sudden intestinal need. Here, oh no, here. We're gonna try to make it normal for this live video audience. Okay, inversion politics. Do we have any viewers yet? Oh, look, there's 4 people. Oh my god. Hello. Where did you come from? This is so exciting. Did you show up at my channel? Oh, I love it. I just didn't even know I had people here. It's thrilling. So, what am I here to talk about this morning? I was watching the Alex Jones show on InfoWars about 10 years ago, before he was taken off the internet. He's still on the internet. I just went and watched his live broadcast yesterday morning on a different, platform, but if you look InfoWars up, it says, it's not there anymore. Good luck. I was thinking about it, and Steve Pachenik is one of the people, besides Dan Bongini or whatever. There's some others that went on to go mainstream or whatever, but before Alex Jones was off YouTube, he had Steve Pachenik on. Steve Pachenik's written stuff. I think he's working on a biotech company right now, last I heard. Steve Pachenik is a CIA agent who wrote books and then publishes them. If you want to look him up, his name is spelled Peacenik, kind of like Peacenik. Steve Peacenik, Peacenik. Steve Pachenik, but there's a Chen in there, so Steve Pachenik. So he is actually, obviously, he's a Polish-born, from the adjuncting wizarding community that identifies as Jews, but I don't believe he practices. However, he will tell you the conspiracy theories on politics. He will not go on a Jew blast. As Alex Jones said, it's kind of boring when people get totally stuck on the Jew thing. You're missing so much shit. It's a boring city. Everybody has a fucking, you want to know, from Christians, Catholics, they got some kind of black priests that go around chopping people up and doing crazy illegal deeds according to conspiracy theories. You got like perverts in the clergy and killers in the clergy in every single denomination. And it's not exclusive. So, what Steve Pachenik talks about, when I watched him a lot in his interviews with Alex Jones, is how he has a government CIA agent, how he would profile Trump. And actually, he was pretty accurate. He was like, there's a certain amount of stuff he can be relied on for, because his ego is so tied into his image that holding his image hostage, you could cause him to perform. That Pachenik said, like Steve Pachenik said from the standpoint of like a CIA operative, that when they're looking at like a government, somebody who could become president or not, you're looking at how likely they are to be controlled and stay within a range or a framework using their image alone, holding their image hostage. Their brand, if you will. So like if they don't have a brand to hold hostage or some children to hold hostage, then there's nothing, you can't really maneuver them well. And so Steve Pachenik pointed that out. He was like, from a position of, when I look at a political person, he was saying to Alex Jones, he's like, I don't really look at like how capable they are they this super genius? Because the person who's nominated to run the government, do they really run the government? Are you kidding me? That's a mascot at best. Some people would say that once in a while you get a president, that's like a black swan. A black swan is held hostage by the fate of the nation. Once in a blue moon, do you get an actual black swan president. Now, people will argue about who the black swan presidents have been. Was it George Washington? Was it Theodore Roosevelt? Who do you think the black swans actually were? Do you think it was Jimmy Carter? Because a black swan can be held hostage by the fate of the nation. Once they've convinced a black swan that they'll hurt the people of the country, and they can prove it, the black swan could be forced to carry through. To minimize the damage because there's nobody else to do it. It's a common manipulation tactic. It works quite well. But you don't get very many black swans. You have to have, it's much easier to get a Donald Trump who's manipulated by their image than to get a black swan who's manipulated by actually staying up at night and being tormented about the people. Now, I could be wrong. I tend to think that you can tell when you've got a black swan in the office by any other trait but rapid onset aging. Now, but maybe I'm wrong. But to me, Nixon looked just as sparkly and good when he got out of office as when he got in. Trump looks the same. He almost hasn't aged. He's not much of a black swan. He must be being controlled by image. Abraham Lincoln looked like shit. He looked like fucking shit. He looked like he had aged 50 years in the few years he was in office. I would go around and I'd look at the presidents who looked like shit after they were done being president, and I'd be like, there's your black swan. Did he get assassinated? Oh, shockaroony. They don't usually, a lot of times, they don't make it too far sometimes. They can make it to the presidency like Martin Luther King, or they make it somewhere. But like, where are you gonna make it after that? So, on that topic, do you really want your country to be less wicked than the surrounding countries? Let's just start before I get into the matriarchy and patriarchy. Let's start with that. I heard somebody say it on YouTube recently. They were like, if all the world is filled with oligarchs and control systems and matrices and Khazarians and mafias, like, what are we to do? What are we to do? What's going on around here? Well, the money system, according to David Graeber, debt the first 5,000 years, the money system is essentially based let me back up a little bit, not just melting money like copper pennies or silver nickels or whatever they are these days, alloyed as something, I don't know, but shells also, any kind of commodity coin means the people are practicing, according to David Graeber, debt the first 5,000 years, they're practicing forced slavery as their financial kingpin. So if you see commodity money, forced slavery is the financial kingpin. And not just all kind of forced slavery goes on, but the chief kind is prostitution. Think of it this way. If there was two people, they were trading their goods, and you went and saw a prostitute, the whole town would see your goat at the prostitute's house, and everyone would know where you'd been. And if the prostitute didn't want to be there, and she was being chained to a doghouse, think of how much trouble you'd be in with your wife. So, to have standing armies and slaves and slave prostitutes, you have to have coin money. Because it sanitizes the slavery and the prostitution so people can handle it like it's no big deal. Do you need money to survive? Not if you live in the center of a continental ridge plate. If you live in the continental ridge plate where the soils are ancient, then only like 15 to 50 people can live on many, 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 many acres of land, and you have to move around all the time. And there is no money. There's no monies out there. There's no commodity monies. So when they don't have commodity monies in those areas, like if you want to look at where commodity monies show up wherever a monotheistic religion shows up. It turns out polytheists and animists also believe there's a singularity and a creator behind everything. It's just that they don't believe that an organism like another human is distinctly authorized to tell them what the truth about that is, and that it's some sort of blasphemy. However, if you live on the edge of a plate ridge zone, as pointed out by Dr. Robert Sapolsky, if there's earthquakes, if there's a fault line, anything that pushes new fresh earth to the top, or a glacier rolling through town does the same thing, right? In those glacier areas where so those two areas develop commodity monies, monarchies, and kingships. There's your cities. This is Cain, of Cain and Abel. Even of the Bible, if you want to think of it that way. Cain is the city dwellers, right? Out on the countryside, there's some Bedouins. There's some people living on the edges of society. Bedouins are kind of in between the two. And then there's the people who live way out there, like in the center of the outback. In those regions, they're almost purely animistic, and they don't use money. If you want monotheism and money, you have to go to a ridge plate or a glacier zone. That is biological determinism, and it's scientifically proven over and over again. Now, if there was someone from the adjuncting wizarding community that gets the J name put on it all the time, they would probably say, that's why we actually tell people, we tell them no when they try to convert. Some of them would say this. We tell them no when they try to convert because, look, you have your own gods. You don't need to go with this one. If you're from a continental plate range, don't just stay out. You don't even need to do it. Right? But that's not what... But what happens but what if they found themselves living in a city? Then how are they going to survive in the city when all of their biology is for not having your monotheistic god, not having your coinage, and not being part of your shitty ass system? Well, that's why they take slaves, and then they force impregnate them generation after generation, so that now they carry the genetics of a bunch of rotten slave owners like everybody else. So that you're just caught up to the general shittiness of everyone else in the world. Why should you be less shitty? So if you sit out there in a continental bridge area and you think you're having fun, you better stay deep out there, because if you go near the edges, the city folk are known for a little Cain likes Abel's wife to do some kidnapping and have future children for slave purposes only. And then drags them in the city, then force impregnates them over and over again until the little bastards want to live there. Abortion City in the retroaction time machine. Bam! Yeah! And so, where was I going with this? Steve Pachenik. First, a note from our sponsors. All right. I feel like you guys have all heard of Slash from Guns N' Roses, but have you heard of Flash? Wait, where's my top hat? Hold on, wait. Hold on. This is Freedom Rock. Freedom Rock, man. We're here to sell you our cool new album. Shit sucks. So, where was I going with all this? I'm here to analyze what's going on. Steve Pachenik said that all politics is inversion politics. So if you're in politics, you're in the land of illusion and gamery, high intrigue, whatever you want to call it. So he was like, all politics are inversion politics. That means, like, if you have democratic type ideals being espoused by the government and a Democrat in office, that's when they're going to get the most control-based, war hawk, anti-democrat stuff in place. And vice versa. Whatever political pundit they put at the front, whatever that person represents, the inverse of what they represent is what that person is being used to pass through the filters. So, like, in the idea of Trump, it'd be like saying that whatever you think Trump stands for, if he's a mascot president, which most of them are, and not a black swan, what you're looking at is the trajectory of whatever the person represents. The exact opposite is going to get pushed through, or the inversion of it. So like the things that they don't represent are what slides through unseen, because people are looking at the bigger picture and ignoring the micro stuff. To give you an example, Chaco Canyon in the southwest of America is an area where they have like these huge multi-story buildings, grand castle palisades. I mean, the ruins are crazy. They're like 1,000 years old and they're standing strong, just like the medieval European stuff. You only see that when there's a very entrenched hierarchy. And so they did research on it, and it turned out that all this raping and all this patriarchy, and the big gambler in Chaco Canyon who's famous for enslaving souls and shit, that it was a matriarchal family of women behind it. So all that big patriarchy in Chaco Canyon, the slavery, the chopping people up in pieces, cannibalizing them, torturing them, and all the crazy, crazy shit they said was all patriarchy. It turned out there was a small handful of women behind it. Now, if we had a matriarchy, guaranteed there would be a small handful of men controlling or manipulating a large group of women because of inversion politics. So when you have a patriarchy, who is secretly getting their will passed? Not just any women, the manipulative women. If we had a matriarchy, who would secretly be getting their stuff passed through? Oh, who? The patriarchy. Because it's all inversion politics. And if you don't believe me, look at the yin yang sign and think of the black as the female and think of the white as the male. Now put it over a north-south cardinal compass of the earth with the earth on it. Thank you very much. Place a mother at the top, a father at the bottom, a little boy at the right, a little girl at the left. Now let's name them. Lilith at the north. At the south you have the father. At the east you have the son. And at the west you have the little girl, or death. Joseph, right? Little Jesus, Mother Mary, with Lilith displaced. That's another, different cultures, different regions try to play it out. What does that mean? What does it mean? It means that when you yin yang over it, you can see that the portion taken up by the black that looks like it's devoted to femininity at the very core has a white dot. That's masculinity and patriarchy. And the big old white patriarchal side has a dot in it, and it's black, and that's the matriarchy. The white dot at the top in the center of the black is Lilith. And then they have a special name for the black dot at the bottom. I forget what it's called though. And then they try to act like this pig's going to show up in the literature, in the adjuncting wizarding literature, and like look at these two females and then decide which one is the most beautiful, the white queen or the black queen, and it's like, or the white, and it's like on the yin yang sign. And it's like the pig really needs to go talk to Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor is known as one of the most beautiful women who ever lived. And yet, if you listen to her in an interview, she will tell you that every single woman, if there's a mitochondrial Eve, all women are made from the same Eve, and just parts from the same Eve put together in different configurations. Every woman is the most beautiful. And not only that, beauty is not the most important thing. In an ideal world, a man would pick the vulnerabilities. He would know that every woman is a representation of Eve, every woman is the most beautiful, but that the configuration that represents the vulnerabilities that he most wants to protect and provide for would be appropriate, but we don't live in that world. where people genuinely get attached to other people because of their vulnerabilities and because of their weaknesses. We live in a world where people get attached to other people because they act like tough fucking assholes. And that's why men always fall in love with evil fucking goddamn whores that are not worthy to be called whores, because the real whores didn't want to be whores and were put into place by the women who don't deserve the title, who are more like pimps, because they abuse the other women. So most men will find themselves drawn to the kind of women who abuse other women, because it's a patriarchy, and every patriarchy is secretly ran by a small handful of women. So when we live in a matriarchy, the majority of men, or the majority of so it'll just be, you can imagine, there will be a small handful of men who've always wanted to make other men behave a certain way and never had the power to, and then they're going to use a gang of women, and then they're going to attack the other men with the women. That's how matriarchy starts. Let me give you a playlist. How one way we could do it. George Soros could call me up, and then he could say, I'm not saying he would, could, or should. I'm saying in a fictitious universe, in an observer bubble, he could call me or any other woman up, and he could say, hey, listen, I need 1 or 2 women out of every 10 women on every block in Southern California. I just need you to work on your area. The men are going to have to start behaving. This is the outline of how it's going to go. Women and children are getting taken care of first, and the whole government's going to flip. But I need you to be on page before it happens. Me and a small handful of men have decided to get rid of the borders, to get rid of the money system as it stands, and to get rid of men being in charge. We're going to let the matriarchy start. Next thing you know, every movement you make on your block is reported. It goes straight into the internet. Every time, they have this internet and AI and everything else, but they have real live women on the street who will call a local government and have your ass arrested. Oh, I've dreamt about it in my sleep and thought it was a good dream. But matriarchy or patriarchy, what I realized is it's no different really in the long run, because if you're a balanced person, you're going to find yourself in the same position whether it's a matriarchy or a patriarchy. It isn't going to make it, it's not going to really matter. So what was the last point? Family. No, I don't even feel like talking about that one right now. Oh, if it's a politics of inversion, then family, all the things you think family represents, is what family is used to get you to ignore while they pass something else through your filters without you noticing. With religion. Same religion, think about it. If you want to be lewd, you're going to take on a religious front. I heard a story that there was this little Gentile girl walking down the streets in Israel, and she was wearing normal, a skirt and a t-shirt or something with her mom. And there was these rabbis and Israeli men standing around, and I heard that because she went through a Hasidic neighborhood that they do this to any people that are dressed in clothes like that. They started calling her a slut and bad names and stuff. And I was like, that's because it's inversion politics. Religion represents those who are lewd, and a little child just wearing an outfit is just being innocent.